Hey guys, so today we are wrapping up everything that I read in the month of October. October was quite an interesting month. I thought I started the month pretty strong with a lot of books that I ended up really enjoying. And then it kind of went off the rails and I DNF'd like 3 books before finding one that I was enjoying. And then I kind of picked up one more and I'm really enjoying that, but I'm not quite finished with it. I still have like 2 days left in October though. So I'll probably finish it. I just one more that I kind of want to start, but I'm not sure, so I am not going to include it in here. But all in all, not a bad reading month, but it was an experimental reading month because I pretty much read all books from like Fairyloot, Illumicrate, OwlCrate, like my book box books. So this whole month was reading books from book boxes and it was a fun one. You know, I found some that I really loved. And like I said, I DNF'd 3, so I'll tell you about those here in a minute. But first, we're going to start with the one that I'm not quite finished with, but I will be finished with probably by the end of today. And that is actually When Night Breaks by Janelle Angelis. This is the sequel to Where Dreams Descend. I absolutely loved Where Dreams Descend when I read it last year. So I jumped right on pre-ordering the second book in the gorgeous OwlCrate edition. Like, this has to be the prettiest OwlCrate book that they've ever done. Like, because like their book's been slacking lately, which is like part of why I canceled them, so I don't get OwlCrate anymore. But man, this was one of the prettiest ones they've ever done. It's just a stunning naked hardback. And so far, I'm about halfway through the book. I'm really enjoying myself. It's very different from book 1. If you've read Where Dreams Descend, you'll kind of know that it's like a competition and there's magicians. And we're following our one girl, and it gave me like Greatest Showman vibes with like the Zac Efron character and Zendaya. Like, it was perfection. I loved it so much. Some weird stuff happens at the end of the book, and this kind of picks up right where it left off. So it picks up like directly after the end of book 1, and it starts kind of unraveling the mystery of what happened at the end of book 1, because like it was a roller coaster of an ending, y'all. It was like, what's going on? But I really loved it. And so far, I'm really liking it. I'm liking that, you know, we're getting some answers. I don't know if I'm liking it as much as I loved book 1, but I'm enjoying myself greatly. The first book that I read in the month of October, started the month out strong, was Wings of Shadow by Nikki Paparetto. This is the 3rd book in the Crown of Feathers. This is the OwlCrate edition. Again, super pretty. And it's signed, and it has bright edges, and it's so pretty. And I absolutely love this. I gave it 5 stars. This was a fantastic wrap up to the series. I think this is probably my favorite book in the trilogy. Like, I loved book 1. Book 2 was really good. And then this might be my favorite. I think it wraps everything up really nicely. And it is YA, but it's very much like YA, kind of bordering on like an intro to adult, which I really appreciate. Like, there's a lot of things in this book I feel like that could help introduce somebody to being an adult fantasy reader when they've typically read young adult fantasy, because like a lot of YA fantasy is very much like single point of view. We have multiple perspectives in these series. Book 1 and then book 2 we get even more, and then in book 3 we get like a ton of perspectives. So I think that's a good way to like open it up to young adult readers wanting to read adult fantasy. I really liked it. You know, it's tropey and it's YA fantasy, but I really freaking loved it. Then we read a book that was kind of a hit and a miss for me at the same time, and that is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. I really was enjoying this book in part 1, where we only followed the one perspective, and then it opened up, and in part 2 it was like a drastic tonal shift, which wasn't terrible, but the farther along in the book I got, the more I realized I'm like, eh. Like, I wasn't hating it, but I wasn't like loving it. So like, this is kind of a middle of the road book for me. There were a lot of really cool things about this book that I really enjoyed. I really actually surprisingly liked that this is a fantasy book that has very little fantasy in it. This is much more historical fiction than fantasy, so take that with a grain of salt. There's no magic really. There's like, it's very, very minimal. There's like some ghosts in there. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed how you know, the views of gender and gender roles. We're following a girl dressed up like a boy through the whole thing. Like, no one knows she's female. And then we're following a general on the opposing side of the army to her, where he is a eunuch. And he is actually like leading the army for the people who like killed his whole family and made him a eunuch. And it's just wild. The political intrigue in this is wild. And I really, really appreciated that. I will be reading book 2 when it comes out because I liked it enough to want to continue and just like want to know what's going on. But it's not like, oh my God, a new favorite. But I am glad that I read it. Probably one of my favorite books that I read this month was a surprise because it's a book box book that like I had never heard of until it came in my Illumicrate, and that is The Devil Makes Three. This is like a older YA, dark academia, paranormal horror, like spooky book, and I devoured this. We are set at like this like prep school. It's like a preparatory high school in Pennsylvania, and there's this like big mysterious library, and our main girl works at the library, and then our main boy is actually the son of the like dean of the school, and they end up kind of working together after they unknowingly unleash this devil from one of the books, and it is fantastic. It's bloody and violent. It's a lot at times. You're like, ooh, that's bloody. But it was so good. And it was surprisingly good. And it's a standalone, which that made me happy. And then the very last sentence of this book is one of those where you like, oh, they did that. So definitely recommend this one. The final book that I finished this month was Legendborn, and I ended up liking this a decent amount. I gave it 4 stars, kind of a 3.5. I will probably still be unhauling it because it was just not for me, and it just felt a little younger for me, and I honestly think that my 16-year-old niece would like this a lot more than I do. So I'm gonna give it to her. I'm gonna pass it on to her. But I might still read the second book. I don't know. Like, it's interesting enough. It's got a really cool premise. I love our main character. Our main character, Bree, is going to this, like, advanced high school and college type thing. And honestly, I felt like this could have been an adult book. Like, we could have aged her up and put her in actual college, and it would have been the same story, you know? Like, I had some issues with it. Like, I felt like this was just YA to be YA. Like, she was in high school just to be in high school, but like, really, this would have made perfect sense as like a college freshman. So take with that what you will. But she ends up discovering this like secret society of people, and it's all based around Arthurian legend. But then she also starts to learn more about her own family history that she knows nothing about. There is 2 different kinds of magic. There is root magic, which I love that they explored in this book, and like ancestral magic. And then there's also what they call it, like bloodcraft. And that is like on the Arthurian side of it, where like everyone's descended from like Arthurian knights, and they're like the Knights Reborn or something like that. And then they're fighting these like shadow demon creatures, and she's trying to find balance between trying to figure out what happened to her mother, who died at the very beginning of the book, and like staying true to herself, but also she's making these new friends, but not everybody is her friend, because like she is like the one black girl in this like secret society, and she is experiencing a whole lot of racism in it, a lot of microaggressions, even from the people that are nice, like touching her hair and like doing stuff that it's like, you don't do that. Like, and like at one point there's like an older character who literally thinks that she's a servant. And she's like, no. There's a romance in this book, and at first I was really here for it. And then it kind of became this like weird love triangle that I was not here for. So there's one of the love interests that I'm just not here for. But I'm really hoping that in book 2 it doesn't go down that path. Like, don't go down that path, because, ooh, let's stick with love interest A, not love interest B, okay? But I did like it. I probably will read the second, but I'm also probably going to pass it on to my niece. The next 3 books were all my DNFs. And if these are your favorites, I'm really sorry. I don't mean to attack you as a person. They weren't for me. So, first up, we have These Violent Delights. This is a like Romeo and Juliet retelling in Shanghai in the 1920s. It sounded like a good time. I just didn't make it very far. Maybe 100 pages. And I was just bored. I just didn't care. I didn't care about any of the characters. Like, our main girl kind of annoyed me. Like, she was very, like, hard and badass, but, like, to an annoying degree. And, you know, they're gang families. And I'm just like, I just wasn't here for it. I was bored. I really don't have much to say about this one because I didn't make it very far. I was just bored. Then I also DNF'd Dark and Hollow Star. I tried. Honestly, I don't like fairy books. We're starting to really realize that. Like, I'm self-aware enough to know I just don't like fairy books. And that's the fairy book. There's a lot of fae and unseelie and seelie, and like, I'm pretty sure there's some romance. I didn't even get that far. And there's like one fairy girl who's like cast out, and then like there's one girl who's like half fae and she's like trying to prove herself, and that's about as far as I got. Let's be real. I just, with all the seelie and unseelie and fae, and I was just like, it's not for me. I've heard a lot of people love this book, but I just don't like the fae, so it's not for me. I'm gonna pass it on. And these will all probably go to my niece because they're YA books, and she likes to read, and she's 16, so she probably like a lot of these more than I do. My final DNF of the month was Lore by Alexandria Bracken. I tried. I made it farther in this book than I did in my other DNFs. I think I made it 200 pages, something like that. Not even. Like 150 pages. And I was just bored. Once again, I was bored. Like, I wasn't feeling the romance, and I just didn't feel connected to any of the characters. I felt like this had such a cool concept with the idea of, you know, the Greek gods being real and coming down to earth every 7 years, and like these families hunt them, and if you kill one of the Greek gods, you become the Greek god, and then you're good for 7 years, but then you have to come and be hunted. And like there's like a mystery, like who's killing people outside of the tournament, and it sounded really good, but like I just was, again, I was bored. It wasn't for me, and that's fine. Like, it's hard to explain why I DNF'd it. I was just like reading it like, ugh, I just don't care. I don't care. I didn't feel connected to any of the characters, and if I don't feel connected to the characters, I don't want to keep reading it. So this, once again, is going in the unhaul to my niece pile. All right. That is everything that I read and attempted to read in the month of October. Hopefully you had a slightly better reading month than I did, but honestly, all in all, I'm not upset. I found some books that I really, really enjoyed, and then I'm able to get rid of 4 books off my shelf. So that's kind of like my project, because like I want to clean out my shelves. I say, as I went to the used library book sale the other day and have a stack of books here that I need to haul and put on my shelves. But that is for another day. I want to clean out my shelves. I want to read what I have, get rid of what I don't like, and then keep only what I like and what I need to read. So that's gonna be a long project, and I'm not doing like a no buy, but I'm doing like a low buy. We'll see, because the holidays are coming up, and that's when I usually acquire the most of my books. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I really enjoyed the ones that I finished. So these are the keepers, the good ones that I'm loving. I'm gonna finish When Night Breaks super soon, so I'll tell you all about that in a reading vlog that I'm doing for it. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this and had a good reading month. Let me know your thoughts on some of these books, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.